yesterday's lesson was really about, can you look at two fractions and say yes they're equivalent or no they're not equivalent. Today you're going to actually have to make the fractions yourself and make that decision. So instead of us drawing them for you or you looking at a picture, you're going to have to say, okay, 1/2 and 2/4, are they equivalent? And you're going to have to draw them and make that decision on your own. But for 10-minute math, we're going to do an activity called counting around the class. So the way that works is I'm going to say your name and you are going to count. We're going to count by fives. So for example, if I said Miss Weibel to start, Miss Weibel, if we were counting by fives, would say 5. And I would write 5. And then the next person I call on is going to say the next number when you're counting by fives. All right. So we started Miss Weibel. Ania.
10.
DJ.
15.
I gotta scroll down. Alejandro.
20.
Derek.
25.
Thank you. Guadalupe.
29.
Count by fives. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25. What would come next?
20.
You're close. 30. There you go. Hang on. I gotta let Mrs. Fleischer in. She just joined the meeting. Give me 1 second. I'm gonna make Mrs. Fleischer a co-host too. If I can find her, there she is. All right. So Clay, you just came in. We're counting by fives. So when you call, your name gets called, you have to say the next number. Eduardo, we're looking at your ceiling, so I can't tell if you're there. Eduardo, if we were counting by fives, what would come after 30?
35.
35. Thank you, sir. And let's see. Oh my gosh, people keep going out and coming in. Cynthia.
40.
40. And Alex J. Next one.
45.
All right, I'm going to stop there for a second. So 9 people have now counted. Could anybody tell me what would be our multiplication equation that we could write to represent what has already been counted? So if I was writing a multiplication equation, Clay, what would it be?
9 times 5.
Equals?
45.
Very good. And how did you know that? How did you know it was 9 times 5 equals 45?
Because we're counting by fives, and we counted by fives 9 times, and our answer is 45 because we stopped at 45.
That's perfectly explained. We had 9 people count, so that's where a 9 comes from. We're counting by fives. That's where the 5 comes from. And you can see on our chart right here that on the 9th one, we stopped at 45. All right, we're going to keep going. Eric, what will be next?
50.
Very good. Very good. Kayla, do you know what would come next after 50?
55.
Very good. Corbin, what's after 55?
60.
Let's see if there's anybody else who's not counted yet. Denise, what would come after 60?
65.
All right, and now could anybody stop after 13 people and tell me what would our equation be for after 13 people right here? What would be our multiplication equation to represent where we just stopped counting? Ania.
13 times 5.
Equal equation means we have the equals part. Equals what?
65.
And where did you get all those numbers? 13 times 5 equals 65.
Because I counted each number that we did, and I got 13. And then I knew that we counted by fives. And then I knew the answer because we stopped at 65. So I knew that
Very good.
Was 65.
Thank you. Dunya, do you know what would come next? Jonathan, can you help her out? Jonathan, what would come next if we were counting by fives? We got people. Jonathan, is it not letting you unmute yourself again? Jonathan couldn't unmute himself earlier. Can you unmute yourself? Jonathan, what will come after 65?
70.
70, very good. Is there anybody who did not count a number at all? Anybody who did not count a number at all? Going through our whole class here. Clay, what will come next? You haven't counted yet.
75.
Very good. All right. So that's the first time. This activity is called Counting Around the Class. We did fives today. Dunya, what will come next?
80.
80. Very good. Thank you, Dunya. I think that's everybody now. So these are, oh no, Eric, did you count yet?
No.
What's next, Eric? You're the last one.
85.
Thank you, sir. So these are counting around the class. We start with fives. Fives are pretty simple, right? What do we notice about the second digit, even the first digit and the second digit, the last digit, and all of these numbers? So we have a 5, and then 10, and then 15, and then 20, and then 25. What do you notice about the last digit, the ones place, and all these numbers? Anybody notice something, kind of a pattern? Corbin, what do you notice?
That they end in zeros and fives.
Yep, so when you count by fives, the ones place is always going to end in a 5 or a 0. So that's kind of one of the clues you can use when you're counting by fives. These will get harder. We'll do a little bit harder, more difficult numbers. So be ready, because we're going to keep doing these over the next few days. But with that, that's a wrap on 10-minute math, and I'm going to turn things over to Ms. Weibel for the rest of the lesson. Nice job, you guys. And if you are not muted, could you please go back and unmute yourself too, because we got some background noise going on.
All right, Denise, can you read our goal for today, please?
Our goal today is to be able to create equivalent fractions using different represents from previous lesson.
Yep, so those two words using the different representations from previous lessons. Thank you. All right, so a little review. What does it mean if fractions are equivalent? Cynthia?
It means the same amount of a same size whole. Shaded.
Yep, the same amount of a same size whole is shaded. So that's just a little review on what that means. And we're gonna practice a couple like we did yesterday. Put my mask down. All right, so if I'm gonna draw these out, Clay, for 5, 6, how many equal parts am I gonna divide my rectangle up into?
6 equal parts.
Mm-hmm. And Jonathan, how many am I going to shade in? Oh, I forgot about your muting issue.
Me?
Yeah, how many am I going to shade in?
Uh,
I divided it into 6 equal parts, so how many? Yep, good job. So then I'm going to draw the same size hole down here. And Guadalupe, how many equal parts am I going to divide the next one up into if I'm doing 1/2?
2.
Yep. And CJ, how many will I shade in? 1, I saw your hand. Okay. So, Alex J, are these equivalent? Are these two fractions equivalent?
No.
No, they're not. And why not?
Because they don't line up in the same place.
They don't line up, another way we can say that is they don't take up the same amount of the whole, okay? All right, so we're gonna do 1/4 and 2/8. So I'm gonna divide my first one into 4 equal parts. And I'm gonna shade in 1, because that's my numerator. I'm shading in 1 part of the whole. And I'm gonna draw another one right below it. And I'm gonna divide this into 8 pieces. And Eric, how many am I gonna shade in? So I just did, I'm doing 2/8. I divided it into 8 equal parts. How many will I shade in?
First to Eric.
2/8.
I'm gonna shade in 2 because that's my numerator, okay? And Ania, can you tell me if these are equivalent or not? I draw my line down from the shaded parts. Do they line up?
Yes.
Yes, so they are equivalent. Okay, they take up the same amount of the whole. Now, as you can see, it's a little wonky because I'm trying to draw it here on the board, but these are the same size whole and they take up the same amount of the same size whole. So we're gonna do one more over here. So we have 1/3 and 2/6. I'm gonna shade in 1 out of my 3 on the first one. Then Alejandro, how many equal pieces am I gonna split this next one up into?
6.
6, and how many am I gonna shade in?
2.
Yep. And Corbin, are these equivalent? Yes, how do I know that?
Because they are lined with each other. If you draw a line down, they will be equal.
Yep, they take up the same amount of the whole, same amount of the same size whole. Okay, so there are 3, we're gonna start drawing these ourselves. So you guys have been watching me draw them, and now you guys are gonna practice on your, well, with me and on your own drawing them. So if you don't have your whiteboard and marker or a piece of paper and a pencil, go ahead and grab that right now. I'm gonna give you about 30 seconds to do that. And show me when you got it, so I know that we're ready. I see nobody's whiteboard right now. Ania has hers. Alex J's got a piece of paper. Corbin's got one. Jonathan, Alejandro, Denise, Cynthia. All right. Hopefully you're close to having yours if you don't have it right now. So, Guadalupe, can you read my first step to create fractions that we can compare? What's my number 1 step?
They have the same size whole.
Yep, they must have the same size whole. CJ, can you read my second one?
We must line up the 2 holes, one on top of the other.
Mm-hmm. And Eric, can you read my number 3?
We must
We must divide them the same way.
Yep, so I'm going to show you guys kind of what I mean by each of these steps. So we all know what it means that they must have the same size hole. That's what we've been doing this entire time. So if I'm drawing two rectangles and I'm going to divide them up and compare them, they have to be the same size as best you can draw. It won't be perfect, but these are the same size as much as I can get it. And then we must line up the two holes, one on top of the other. So like this, like we've been doing this whole time. These are put one on top of the other. And then number 3 is we must divide them the same way. So if, say I'm doing fourths, say I'm going to compare 1/4 and 2/8. If I divide this one like this, so here's my 1/4, I can't go down here to do 8s and do them like this. I still have 8 pieces, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, but I can't line this up and compare it this way. You have to draw them the same way.
Yeah, so like, so just to help, like, so if you colored in 2/8 and you colored it in like that on that one, then you can't really draw a line straight down to help you compare those, right? The same thing goes with, like, sometimes you might want to divide things right down the middle. So I'm going to, hang on real quick, guys. So you might, like, if you drew that rectangle right underneath it, sometimes people divide things like this. They go like 1, 2, 3, 4, and then they do like ace like that. And then, well, if you do 2/8, you can't really compare those two because you can't say, oh, well, I'm going to draw a line straight down from here and see if they line up, right? So you have to divide them the same way. So if you're doing like vertical lines straight across like you did fourths on the one on the top, you've got to do the same thing for ace on the bottom. And Miss Bible will show you what that should look like.
So if I was, okay, it's going to be green. If I was comparing these two, so here I have 4, and I'm going to split them in half again to get 8s. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 pieces, and I'm going to shade in 2 of them. Now I can compare these because they are lined up so we can see them. So Clay, are these equivalent?
Yes.
Yes, they are. And we can see that because they're part of the same size hole. We put them one on top of the other and we divided them the same way. So we are going to practice with 2/3 and 4/6. So we're going to walk through this one together before I let you guys do one on your own. Alex J, what's the first thing I need to do?
2/3.
2/3. So I'm going to draw a rectangle. And I'm going to divide it into how many pieces?
3.
And I want everyone to be doing this on their whiteboard, okay? So I'm going to ask you guys to show me once we finish this problem. And I should see that everyone has this drawn out. All right, then how many am I shading in?
2.
Mm-hmm. Give me a thumbs up when you have that drawn. I see Alejandro's giving me a thumbs up. Cynthia is, Denise is. Clay is. All right. Ania, you're gonna help me draw the 4/6. When I draw my rectangle for 4/6, what do I need to make sure? What's that first step that we need to make sure?
You need to draw the rectangle.
Can I just make it whatever size I want?
No, it has to be, it needs to fit it needs to be able to fit 6 pieces inside.
Right, but if I'm like, can I draw it like this? Pretend that's
No,
right.
it has to be like just like the first square.
Yep, it needs to be the same size as the first one. And how many pieces am I dividing it up into? How many equal pieces?
Mm,
For 4/6.
Six.
6, yep. Dividing it up into 6 equal pieces. And then how many am I going to shade in?
4.
Mm-hmm. All right. CJ, are these equivalent?
Yes,
Yes, and how do I know that?
because they're both the same size.
Yep,
Right?
they take up the same amount of the whole. All right. Let me see those boards when you've got these drawn so I can make sure that everyone is practicing this with me.
Guadalupe just got a bonus point. Clay just got a bonus point. Cynthia and Jonathan just got bonus points. Alex J. Corbin, Alejandro.
Can I go?
Not yet. Denise, the lesson is not over, sir. I think that's the last. Ania, that's the last one. All right. You got one more chance at a bonus point, y'all. Dunya, sorry. Good job, Dunya.
Okay, thank you for those of you that did that. So I want you guys to try this one on your own. I'm gonna give you about 2.5 minutes to do it, 2.5 to 3 minutes to do it. And then I'm gonna call on someone to talk me through step by step what they did. Ready, set, go.
I'm setting a timer, y'all. Two minutes remaining. One minute remaining.
I really like how Ania is giving me a thumbs up. I always know when she's ready to go.
30 seconds.
Kayla, thank you. Jonathan, too. Dunya. All right. Who would be willing to share with me step by step what they did? Alejandro, thank you. Go for it.
So I did a rectangle.
Okay, so you drew a rectangle. Thank you
And
for
then-
going slow so I can keep up. All right, then what?
And then I drew a line in the middle.
In the middle?
Yeah.
Okay,
After that, I drew 3 lines in the right.
all right, so you divided these up.
I think 3 and yeah, make 8.
All right, and then did you do the same thing on the other side?
Yes. Using it?
Okay, and then what did you do?
And then I colored in 2 in.
Okay, then what?
Then I drew another rectangle.
Okay, and is there anything special about this rectangle that you did?
That I made a line in the middle.
What size did you make this rectangle? Same size as the one above or different?
Same size.
There we go. Drew a line in the middle.
And then I drew 1 line at the left.
There's 1 line on each side, so you've got 4 equal pieces here. Then how many did you shade in?
I shaded in 2 of them.
2 of them. All right, so what's your answer? Are they equivalent or not?
Not an equivalent.
Equivalent. Thank you so much for walking us through that. I need everyone to show me their pieces of paper or their whiteboards now.
Corbin, I got you. Cynthia, I got it. Jonathan, thank you. Clay, thank you. Alejandro, thank you. Dunya, thank you. Kayla, thank you. Denise and CJ, thank you. Alex J, thank you. Guadalupe, thank you. Ania, thank you. Is that it?
Is that everyone?
All right, cool.
All right.
All right, y'all. So I'm going to walk you through your assignment today. It's going to be creating those equivalent fractions on your own on Canvas and then explaining. So, excuse me, let me open that up. And sorry, my mouse just got caught my finger and flew through the air. We're going to go to Tuesday, and you're going to go to math, and then creating equivalent fractions. So you guys, it's set up like a quiz. And the reason it is because it assigns the points to different sections. So I'm going to go to the preview here really quick and show you. So the first one is just simply, are the fractions 1/3 and 2/6 equivalent? Yes or no? And then question 2 says, explain your answer from number 1. How did you know whether or not 1/3 and 2/6 were equivalent? So you can record a video where you show on your whiteboard what you did. You can type, I knew 1/3 and 2/6 were not equivalent because, and tell us how you knew. Don't just say I knew because they weren't equivalent. That's not an acceptable answer, right? You need to be able to show or to explain how you figured that out on your own. So that is 1 and 2. 3 and 4 are the same. Are the fractions 1/4 and 4/8 equivalent? Explain your answer for number 3. How do you know? And then question 5 says, give an example of equivalent fractions. Write an explanation or show a picture to explain how you know the fractions are equivalent. So that means on your own, you're going to have to give us an example of 2 fractions that are equivalent, all right, based on making examples on your own. All right, that is your job today. It is those 5 questions. Please do not leave.
Clay has a question.
Go ahead, Clay.